Hey there, guys. Welcome to Brush Up with Braun, brought to you by Braun's Painting Network. I am your host, Steve Braun, and this is episode 6, our final episode of this inaugural season of this new podcast series titled Brush Up with Braun. It is a show dedicated to all things residential painting and related home improvement and business topics. Thank you so much for listening. I hope if you've been listening to the other episodes, you've enjoyed the content and you have learned something along the way and maybe have even been a little bit entertained. If you enjoy the content and you would like to see us continue this type of content, the best way that you can help is by subscribing to our YouTube channel. It can be found at Bronze Painting Network on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. You will get access to not only this podcast, but all the other types of training, motivational, and painter comedy video content that we create. Also, if there's anybody else in your life that you think may benefit or enjoy this content, please suggest it accordingly. So, episode 6 is going to be all about things to consider before starting a painting business. I know that being a business owner is a goal and a curiosity, at least for a lot of people. We certainly can't cover all aspects of operating or owning your own business. But I wanted to put together this high level discussion with some really important bullet points that I think would be my most important advice to somebody that is going to consider starting their own business. And in this case, starting their own residential painting business. So, what are going to be the topics of discussion? I want to talk about some of the competencies that you need beyond painting expertise. Okay. I'm happy that you're a great painter. I'm sure that you are if you're considering starting your own painting business. But there is a lot more to it than that if you want to operate your own business. And we're going to look at some of those important skills that you will need. Then I want to take a look at the value pyramid, which is something that I discussed in the prior episode about hiring. I think, believe it was episode 2 about hiring contractors from a. Actually, it was episode 3. Let me correct that. It was the episode about hiring a contractor from the homeowner perspective. We talked about the value pyramid and how a painting contractor should bring value to a customer. So I want to talk about that from a contractor perspective. That's an important discussion to have. Then we're going to talk about 3 kind of really important bullet points on what are some of the most critical things that I suggest you understand before you take the plunge and start your own residential painting business. So, what are some of the skills you need outside of painting ability? You certainly need to have very good organizational skills. You need to have your I's dotted, your T's crossed, and you have to be very good about kind of organizing information and being able to access it at a later date. It is critical to your ability to be professional, to operate an impressive organization. You need to have, it's critical to your ability to execute your service with high quality. It's critical to being in compliance with the many types of laws that you need to understand and be aware of. And it's going to be very critical for you to evaluate your business performance and be able to have continuous improvement in your business so you can not only be successful, but you can survive for the long haul. You need to not only evaluate the performance of your business, but you need to be able to do it in something closer to real time so that you can adjust and make the proper adjustments to be successful. You need to also have very good communication skills, both in terms of written and verbal communication. You cannot be afraid to talk to people. You have to have really good social skills, and these are critical for all phases of your business, starting with your ability to market the business and to conduct a very high quality, successful, and professional sales process. You need it to be able to put together very detailed contracts and agreements. You need to have really good communication skills to lead your team and to operate and to function and to execute your projects with high quality and to ensure your customers throughout the process that they are working with a very professional person. You need to have some sales and marketing skills. If you don't have any experience with selling, in some form or another, or marketing yourself, then I would suggest you don't rush to start your own business, but that you work for organizations as an employee and you build up that skill set. You need to have some tech savvy if you're going to start a business in today's world, or you will not be competitive and you will not make it. You need to understand technology so that you can market and sell, but you also need to have technology so that you can work and execute your business competitively and efficiently, or you will fall behind the competition and you will not be able to compete. You need to have leadership skills if you are starting your own business. Even if it's by yourself at first, you need to be the leader. There is nobody to turn to when things get difficult. You have to be a great problem solver and you need to be a leader so that you are setting the foundation for when you bring employees in. You will need those skills to be able to grow and develop a team. You need to have incredible energy and work ethic to be a business owner. Now, the goal is that someday you won't have to work yourself to death as a business owner. But I promise you, when you are starting and getting it off the ground, unless you were given the silver spoon and some huge endowment or family access to some serious family resources, you are going to need to really work a lot of hours to get your business off the ground, especially in the early years of your business. You have if you struggle to get through a 36-hour work week, you're not going to be able to start your own business. You have to be able to be flexible and work odd hours and do what you need to do to get a business off the ground. And you have to have thick skin. It will not be a smooth ride, an easy trajectory. There's going to be some ups, there's going to be downs, it's going to be all over the place. And there's no way you can avoid some difficult times and challenges as a business owner. There will be a lot of fun along the way, a lot of things to be proud of and successful, but there are going to be bumps in the road and you have to have thick skin. If you're going to fold up shop the first time things don't go your way operating a business, it's going to be a brief stay and I really wouldn't bother. All right? So let's take a look now at the value pyramid, and this is what I believe as a contractor, residential painting contractor, the what you need to strive for to be a successful painting operation. And one thing that I'll say, it kind of piggyback off what we just talked about with these skills that you want to acquire. Now, is we're going to talk about the value pyramid, and you need to understand what it takes to bring value to people. If you feel like you don't have this ability or these skill sets yet, that's okay, especially if you're early career and you're a young person. I wanted to start, I almost dropped out of college to start a painting business when I was, I think, 20 years old. And now that I look back, yeah, I was driven. I did not know anything. I mean, I have no idea how I would have actually done it. And of course, I was ultimately talked out of it through my now future wife and other family members to stay the course. Finished my education and I went on to work for I learned some skills working for, smaller, simple jobs while I was going to school. And then I worked for four major corporations over the course of 13 years, to where what I learned has been invaluable. And there's no way I could have successfully started my own business without having that background. I was 35 or 36 years old when I started my business. And it's not about age, but it is about experience. And if you don't have some of these skills that I talked about, you need to get them. And the best way to get them is by working for another company, working for somebody else, and being developed. So, the value pyramid, there are four buckets of value that I refer to as the value pyramid. There is a big foundation of professionalism that you need to bring to the table as a residential painting contractor. Then you need to have a safe operation. Then you need to, number three, do consistently high quality work, and you need to do it in an efficient manner. So you have professionalism, safety, quality, and efficiency. And they're all super important. There isn't any, you need to have all of them. But the reason I start with a base of professionalism, because if you can't start off your interactions with clients and prospective customers in a professional manner, nothing else is going to matter. You need to be consistent. All those skills we talked about, you need to put them to good use. You need to be on time. You need to be where you're going to say you're going to be. You got to have follow through. You got to have these great verbal skills. You got to conduct yourself like a professional. You got to understand the difference between being in a working environment and being in a social environment. You got to have really good job site etiquette and social awareness skills that is so critical, especially when we're talking about doing residential work where you are in people's homes and your conduct needs to be at its absolute best at all times. You need to have really good awareness of what really good written contracts and a really good sales process. That's all about having that core foundational professionalism. You need to operate in a safe manner for the sake of yourself, your future or current employees, the residents of the home, the homeowners, the kids, the pets, and people that could also be impacted by your projects, including neighbors and visitors to the home. We need to have a safe operation because if people are being hurt or property is being damaged, all the great work that occurred is kind of for nothing if we have those types of problems going on when it comes to a painting operation. We need to do really good quality work, and you do that by having good processes and systems that you need to develop as a passionate career painter. And you want to make sure that you have good systems and good processes before you go out and you start adding other people to the mix. You need to be able to share with them and train them on these great processes and procedures that you have so that they can execute the work up to your standards. You execute quality work by being up to date. You execute quality work by again having the processes, but also using great products, using great materials, having great tools and equipment, and then having support from others in the industry like suppliers and manufacturers representatives to help you and help you educate you, keep you up to date, educate you on the latest and greatest in products and equipment. That is how you can consistently execute great quality work. And then you need to be able to do all these things efficiently. You can be the nicest guy ever, have a great sales process, you conduct your high quality, outstanding work in a safe manner. But if you take way too long to do a job, how are you going to bring value to a customer? If it's going to take you 7 days to paint a bedroom, it's not going to matter that it was beautiful and that the customer really likes you and that nobody got hurt because the amount of money you're going to have to charge a customer is going to be so high that they got to go another direction. They can't afford you, or you're going to be losing money to where your career as a painter and a business owner is going to be over really quick. So you need to make sure that you can be efficient. And again, you are efficient by using the latest and greatest. Got to have great processes that take efficiency into account. And you got to use the best products and the best tools and equipment that allow you to work at a really effective pace. And you got to make sure that you and your staff buy into this and that you have a committed team that isn't going to twiddle their thumbs all day or take a nap on the side of a house or be on their phone all day long, not actually executing work. That's how you get things done efficiently. So that is the value pyramid. You bring value through professionalism, safety, quality, and efficiency. What are my three major bullet points on what you need to know before you take the plunge into going out and working for yourself as a residential painting contractor? The biggest thing I can advise you on is you have to know your numbers. And there is a lot to that. But if you don't understand numbers before you start a painting business, you need to take the time to think, research, and plan. You have to have a business plan. If you do not have a written business plan before you start your business, you're making a huge mistake. Stop, work on it at night, work your job, spend the next 6 months or a year working on a business plan and figuring out how you're going to do this right. You have to know your numbers. And if what I would encourage you, even if you do start your business, you probably want to test your understanding of your numbers by yourself on your own in a window of time and really make sure that you do understand your numbers before you expand and grow your business too quickly, because growth without understanding your numbers is going to be the quickest killer of your business. And the biggest thing you want to understand is, what are the financial goals that are a part of your business plan? What are your target numbers as far as revenue and profit? What are the types of profit margins that you want? How are you going to compensate yourself? How much money do you want to make? And you have to be realistic. Don't we all want to be millionaires? But what is a reasonable income that you need to make to be able to live your normal, reasonable lifestyle while you grow a business? And then how do you make that money? What type of revenue and pricing and margins and operational expenses and strategy needs to happen to make that money? You have to start with your goals, and then you figure out how to execute from there. You need to really understand your true costs. And that can be a little challenging, especially once you start getting into having a bigger business and you have employees and facilities and things of that nature. But understanding your overhead expenses is a big one. And if you're not aware, overhead expenses are fixed costs that you need to pay regardless of your sales volume. So, based on your current state of your business, you have things that are going to have to be paid whether you sell 10 jobs that month, 20 jobs, or one job. An example of that would be if you do have a shop or an office, your landlord or your mortgage holder is going to require you to make your monthly payments on your rent regardless of whether how successful your sales were for that month. So you need to account for that. It is a fixed overhead that you have to pay. Now, you if you start small and you work out of your home and you're already paying your mortgage for your house, then it'll be a little bit easier. But another example, even for a small startup, would be having quoting software. You have a subscription fee to have quoting software. You're gonna need some software to help you with your financials in your books. There's a subscription fee for that. They don't do it for free. You might have your cell phone service, or maybe your internet access, your vehicles. Okay, some of these things that are fixed in place. If you take on a subscription for some of these technologies and applications, you got to pay for that regardless of how well you do from a sales perspective. Then you have your operational costs, which are the things that you need to purchase and spend money on as you operate your business. And they are dependent on the amount of sales volume that you do. This is things like your cost of goods sold, such as materials and supplies, and what we refer to as cost of service. So this would be the productive labor. In the case of my business, my productive staff, my painters, the amount of compensation money that is spent on them with wages and benefits, that is the cost of my service labor. So that is an operational cost. If we don't have any business that month, unfortunately, they're not going to be working. Everybody's laid off, so that volume is going to go low. Thankfully, that hasn't happened at Bronze Painting. But if we have a huge boon of explosive sales growth, well, we got to go out and hire people. Well, then obviously my cost of service is going to go up exponentially. Now, my fixed cost, my rent should stay the same, unless now do I got to go out and get a bigger building because I'm growing my company. So there's a difference between fixed overheads and what your operational costs are. You need to understand all of them when you are planning for a business and you're evaluating the financial performance of your business. You need to understand and know what a profit and loss statement is, and you need to know what a balance sheet is. You need to understand what a chart of accounts is, and the different things within a business, your different brackets of income. And I'm not saying you need to go out and get a degree in accounting or become a CFO. There is certainly help to be had. But as a leader, as a business owner, sure, you could have an accountant helping you, a bookkeeper, a CPA to help you, highly advisable, but it's important that you also understand a lot of these high level things so you can make good decisions as a business owner. You have to budget properly and account for all of your costs so that you can charge appropriately within your labor rate. If you're taking a look at your overhead expenses as an example, and you add up all the things you have to pay for, your rent, your subscription fees, your administrative staff that helps you, and they are overhead, right? Because they are not billable work. You can't send a bill to a customer for the staff member that runs payroll and does your bookkeeping for you. But you do need to pay them, and you need to indirectly charge your customer for the amount of money you need to operate your business. So when you add these things up, let's just say for easy math, you determine that on average per week you need to spend $1,000 per week on your overhead expenses. And let's, for simplicity, also say that you on average produce 200 hours a week of productive billable time. You have painters that work 200 hours a week on projects. So when you do that math, we now have $1,000 to pay for, and we have 200 billable hours in which to fund that. We need to charge $5 an hour to cover that $1,000. So when you are factoring in your labor rates and you're determining, okay, this employee makes X amount of dollars, and here's all the things we got to pay on top of their wage. Now we got to factor in our overhead expenses on top of that, and you add that to your wage. So when you are determining your price points, it all needs to be accounted for. If you haven't already and you're listening to this, highly recommend you need to go and listen to episode 4, which is all about understanding contractor pricing. And it was really intended for homeowners when they're evaluating contractors, but it's super relevant to this discussion as well. I don't want to repeat all of that, but highly recommend you listen to it, and you can see how an employee's wage, how it extrapolates once you factor in all the different types of things that need to be paid for with employment taxes and insurances, benefits, paid time off, non-billable time, and overhead. It all adds up, and the number that you need to charge every time you put an employee into the field is way more than what their actual wage is. And even if you don't have employees yet, and I would suggest you tread carefully there and take your time, you want to operate your business as yourself and treat yourself as if you were an employee, because once you get to where you need to be, you're going to need to transition the work that you are doing and apply it to having paid employees. So what I would say is, if you're the solo proprietor and you're operating, it's a lot easier to get a business off the ground. I would encourage you to take your time, at least a few months, work by yourself, make sure things are in line, your numbers are looking right, you got good price points, and your sales process is tight, and it's going to be a lot easier. So again, understand your numbers. Another aspect of understanding your numbers is you need to estimate properly within a reasonable range. You're going to pay your employees by the hour, so you should estimate your jobs in terms of the man hours required to get that job done. You got to remember, you are selling units of time, essentially selling human labor, whether it's your own or an employee's. And people are going to expect upfront fixed costs for budgeting and comparison purposes. There are exceptions with different types of contracting, but I can tell you, for the most part, when it comes to a residential painter, your prospective clients should be and most likely will be evaluating other options in addition to you, at least a couple other options, potentially more. And they're going to want to know what you're going to charge them up front so that they can, compare everything that you offer, including your price, with the other options. And if they have no idea what you're going to cost, it's just, I don't know, I'll bill you at the end. They can't properly evaluate you. And they also need to understand, do they have the money to hire you, or can they access the money? So you need to be able to provide upfront pricing. So the onus and the pressure is on you as the business owner. How do you give them a price? You need to be able to estimate your time properly, or I promise you, not only will you not make money, you will lose money. You're going to lose money. If you start a painting business, I promise you there's no way you're going to estimate every job you do successfully and make profit. You're going to have jobs where you take losses. You have to accept that and understand it. Now, the better prepared you are for this reality, hopefully the less it will be a problem for you. But it is very difficult unless, again, if you've spent 10, 15 years of a career as a professional estimator for somebody else, well, you're a lot better positioned than most people who want to start a painting company, because you are so far ahead of the curve in being able to estimate work properly. You could do the greatest work ever. You got very happy customers. But if you estimated a job to take 100 man hours and it takes 150, 180 man hours, yeah, I've been there, and you got to eat it. I've smiled. I've said, "Hey, thank you so much." They think I'm the greatest guy ever, and I had to walk away. I did a great job. Now you can't shortchange the customer. That's what you promised them. If you want to be an ethical, quality salesperson, you get it done, you execute it, and you learn from that hit that you took. But you won't. You can only do so much of that before it's done. You're going to be done. So just please understand there is no guaranteed profits or rainbow to the pot of gold when you're a business owner. You can absolutely lose money, and you are not guaranteed a profit. Getting a profit, you earn a profit. There's more risk once you start considering employees. So because now not only you're not just worried about paying yourself, you know who has to get paid if you have an unsuccessful job? By law, your employees. So if you are relying on employees to get a job done and you estimated it for 100 hours and they take 150, you can't tell those guys, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm only going to pay you guys for 100 hours of your work." It doesn't work that way. You are legally required. They did the work. Now, maybe they didn't do it great, but that's on you. Did you develop them right? Did you train them? Did you vet them? If they did the work and they were on your payroll, you have to pay them for the work that they did, regardless of how successful the project was for you as an employer financially. So that's why there's a lot more risk. Now, if you're a sole proprietor, and that's why I recommend if you're struggling or you really have a lot of anxiety about this, you need to do your projects on your own, because if you're only having to worry about paying yourself, number one, there's a lot of things you don't have to worry about as far as compliance and payroll and all that, and you're able to execute the job. And if you do underestimate, well, you're still going to make money, right? Maybe you're not going to make the money per hour that you want, but you're going to have to make up for that with good old fashioned sweat equity, and just consider it a learning experience and get better at your estimating, so that in the future you're actually able to have much better luck and you're actually making money when you do your jobs. It is so critical. This is the last aspect of knowing your numbers. You have to track your data and evaluate every single job in real time or something close to it, so that you can continuously get better as an estimator and with your pricing model. That's why I talked about in the lead in on this show that you have to have really good organization skills. If you're not organized, you're not going to be able to track your data, and you're not going to be able to evaluate every job. You have to know within a couple of weeks, if not sooner, when you complete a job, did it go well? I'm not talking, hopefully, it goes well with the customers and they're happy and they're going to refer you for future work. But did you make money on the job? Or if you did, was it enough money for you to be successful and make this whole thing worth it? If you didn't, can't go cry a river. You signed a contract with a customer. You need to learn from it, because and hopefully if you have a positive attitude, then down the road that's going to be the foundation for allowing you to be very successful and to make money. But you have to track your data. You have to have good books. You got to have your receipts got to be entered. You got to have good invoicing, and you got to have a way to understand each job, how well you did profitability. I recommend understanding creating a system. I have some proprietary tools that, maybe down the road I will share and incorporate, but, I'm not alone. There's other similar types of things. There are applications out there that can help you, but you need to have a tool and a system in a way to tell you after a job is completed and all the payroll numbers are in and all the invoices have been entered and all the receipts have been done and all the deductions have been made, what was left at the end of the rainbow? What was your profit? What was your margins? Did you make money on labors? Did you make money on materials? And what was your profit per hour? Those are all the types of things. What was your labor rate? Because you might want to charge $60 an hour, $75 an hour, but you're only going to get that rate if you estimate it properly. So if it took you a lot longer than you thought, you might have only ended up making $50 per hour. And did you make money at that point? Did you lose money? You need to understand all of that, because if you wait till the end of the year and wait for your accountant at the end of the year to tell you that you lost a bunch of money or you didn't do well on a lot of this, and how are you going to learn from that? In the meantime, you have done how many other estimates and lined up work far in advance? And if it's not work that is successful financially, it's not profitable work, you're in big trouble. So you need to understand your numbers in real time. I can't stress this enough. If you cut off now and you listen to nothing else, Understand that before you take the plunge. Now, the other thing is you got to understand you have a lot of responsibilities and liabilities once you decide to work for yourself. Taxation is way more complicated as far as your income taxes go, federal and state, way more complicated for the self-employed. I'll just leave it like that. It's kind of nice to just get your W-2s in the mail, and then you just either do it yourself in TurboTax or take it to your accountant, and doing your taxes is about an almost it's like a 2-minute process. When you're self-employed, it's way more complicated because you're dealing with your books and you don't have an employer to do all the work for you. You are the employer. You have to deal with sales tax, okay, in some form or another. Now, there might be projects where sales tax doesn't have to be collected. There's things like capital improvements, but I'll tell you, residential painters, there are a lot of jobs that you're supposed to be collecting and submitting sales tax, and you don't just do that out on your own. There's a process for that. There's something called a certificate of authority that you need to sign up for and get from New York State, and you need to understand the differences, and you need to understand your schedule. Some people might file quarterly, annually, weekly. It just depends on what your volume is and the type of business that you have. The responsibility for taxation falls on you, and it's a big responsibility because if you're collecting money that isn't yours and you're responsible to submit it to the state, you need to have a plan in place to handle that money responsibly. You need to understand a lot of different types of consumer laws and contractual obligations. You have a responsibility to provide very detailed written agreements in a professional manner. Those agreements have to have an ability, language, and an ability for the customer to cancel the contract within 3 days of signing the agreement. That is a requirement by law. That is a consumer protection. You need to have clear payment agreements, payment plans and schedules and agreements that are clearly stated to the customer, that are in line with what your localities and states recommend as far as consumer laws go. You need to have completion guidelines with your customers. And, a lot of this stuff can vary from state to state and guideline to guideline. And we're not going to discuss all of that on this podcast, but you need to understand that it does apply. You have responsibility for it the moment you decide you want to be a business owner and have contracts with consumers. There's a lot to know about insurance. There are a lot of different types of insurances that you're going to have to consider, especially if you have employees. That goes up exponentially. Workers' comp is a huge expense cost center for a business, one of the biggest ones you'll have in addition to payroll. Workers' comp insurance, you are required by law to have disability insurance protection. In New York State, there's paid family leave, and there's similar things in other states as well. There is things like commercial auto insurance. You may need to consider umbrella insurance, accident insurance. If you get involved with company sponsored medical insurances, so much to consider. The biggest thing you need to understand is that many of these insurances, workers' comp, liability insurance, disability insurance, they are all based, their premiums that you have to pay are based on your exposure, both in terms of your gross receipts and your employee payroll. So you don't always know exactly what your cost is ahead of time. It's based off of estimates, and then you will be audited on an annual basis. That sounds scary. It's not like you were randomly selected. Any policyholder will be audited at the end of the policy term on a yearly basis, and they will ask you to provide your up-to-date information on what your actual spend was on payroll and what your actual gross receipts were, and that will be used to recalculate your premium, and that's what they call the audit. And then if you need to pay more premium because you had more payroll than what you originally suggested, you're going to have to pay more, and you're going to get a bill in the mail that you now have to pay. So that can be, for a young new business, a real killer. If you don't understand that, to just get a bill for like $10,000 on top of what you thought you already paid and you were done paying for insurance. Oh no, there's more to come. If you're a upstarting business in your first couple of years and these audits start to roll through, that could really hurt somebody really bad, or even put a company out of business if that's not managed properly. So please understand that. Other big last bullet point here is understanding complexities as an employer. I've said multiple times, I recommend you be very careful about diving into employment and that you take your time. dabble your toes as a sole proprietor for a while if necessary. Or listen, you can start a corporation or an LLC, sole member, work by yourself for a while, unless you have a lot of experience to suggest you don't need to do that. I wish I spent more time. I worked by myself for a few months and then got big eyes and had a lot of opportunities coming in, and I hired too fast, and I didn't have all the systems in place. I didn't understand my numbers well enough, and the business grew a little too quick, and I wasn't, the profitability wasn't there, and it took me a while to do all these corrections and get things right. I wish I would have taken more time working by myself at a slower pace to better understand all of these things that we talked about. Once you hire people, the complexities go up a lot. OSHA becomes a thing. Okay, occupational safety hazards. When you're working by yourself, I said so let me slap myself. I don't think the knows and the butts have been too bad. I don't think. So the slapping has definitely worked. OSHA, if you're working by yourself, they're not concerned about you. I would say they're not concerned about you, but it's really about when you're employing people. So if you want to dangle on your own from a roof with a necktie painting a house, nobody's going to come and fine you for that. But if you once you have employees, you need to consider their safety and well-being as an employer, and that is a huge topic that we are not going to get into on this particular episode. That's something that I would definitely, I'm interested in exploring and getting the help of experts, and certainly I have experience with that. But just know that it's a big deal. Once you employ people, you are responsible for their occupational safety, and the government cares about that. So it's not just about you being a nice person. There are some things that you need to be in line on. Payroll is a whole massive burden, so to speak, for an employer. You don't, it's not something that you're going to necessarily manage yourself, but you need to either have an accountant or hire a major payroll provider to do that. We use QuickBooks. It's all through our bookkeeping application. It's phenomenal. I love it. It's super automated and tied in with our books. But there's a lot of great payroll providers out there. Bottom line is that's a huge responsibility. And if you want to legitimately have W-2 employees and operate a business that you want to grow someday, you got to dive right into payroll. And it's a huge responsibility that you need to make sure you understand and that you get the proper help for, because it's all about managing all those tax withholdings and being in compliance on a lot of laws. And then you have the Department of Labor's at a state level, at the federal law. There's a lot of laws. Once you employ people, you are responsible for making sure that you're not discriminating against people for all types of different categories of protection. There's a lot of different wage laws, minimum wage laws, that there's federal, there's state laws. There are rules that vary state by state as far as having harassment training and things of that nature. So in New York State, for example, the moment you have one employee, by law in New York State, you are required to provide them annual harassment training, both at their orientation and start of employment, and then a refresher course on an annual basis. I'm sure that gets skirted a lot, especially for very small employers, but technically the law is there. And the bigger you get, the more visibility there is on that. And you really need to protect yourself from liabilities as much as you want to have a quality work environment that isn't toxic and people are getting harassed all day long. You also need to protect yourself by having harassment training to show that, hey, we have been doing this. So you need to understand that recruiting and retaining people is a very difficult process. That has by far been my biggest challenge since I started the business, is not being prepared for the responsibilities of being an employer and a good employer, and how difficult it is to build a team and scale a team in any industry. And I think certainly and especially in the trades, and something like residential painting, it can be very difficult to find the right people that want to do this type of work, and to retain them with having not only good compensation but good opportunities for employee development and advancement is something that you want to take into consideration, because it's heartbreaking as a business owner to deal with constant turnover, and you can be shocked sometimes. I've had an employee tell me I was the best boss they've ever had and still quit with no notice. I've had people say, I'm sorry, you were awesome, but I'm moving on. I just, is not for me. And it can be a heartbreaking thing to have that happen. But again, that's where it goes back to having tough skin. People, they got to have their own best interest in mind, and there's going to be a lot of movement And even if you take a lot of great steps and measures, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to retain people. So you need to be prepared and have plans in place to not only have a team, but almost anticipate losses and movement. Do the best you can to maintain and retain people, but have places you got to have systems in place so that you can bring newer people in and be able to get them into place. I'm telling you right now, I got a lot of work to do here. There's a reason why I'm stuck on the volumes and the numbers I am, but I'm not. I got a lot to learn here too. So when I talk about wanting to learn as much as the listeners on this is where I'm at, trying to figure out the best ways to grow my business with quality people and developing them and maintaining them. You also, once you're an employer, you are further opening up the doors to expediting potential losses. And because, like I said before, you have to pay your employees whether your job was financially successful or not. And not only from an efficiency standpoint, but you open the door to maybe if you have less experienced employees, less quality employees than maybe what you would be able to do yourself working on a job, you're opening the door for quality issues and mistakes that need to be corrected and are going to cost you a lot of time and money. So, how do you prevent that? Well, again, it comes down to training and processes and great recruiting processes, employee development. Easier said than done, I promise you. So you open the door for that, and that's about being an employer, and that is by far the most challenging task of being a business owner. So those are the three things I would tell you really want to understand and fully research before taking the plunge. You have to know your numbers, both in terms of your costs. Well, even before that, your goals, your financial goals. What are your costs? And then what are your estimate? You got to know your estimating numbers, and then you got to be able to establish really good pricing that is competitive, but is going to allow you to be successful and make a profit. You need to understand all the responsibilities and liabilities that come with being a business owner, and you need to really understand the complexities of being an employer. I hope that this helps you, gives you knowledge. It was useful. Maybe it's going to give you some confidence that you can go out and maybe consider being a business owner even more. Or maybe it's going to scare you so much that you decide, you know what, I might just want to continue to work for somebody else. There is something to be said for the peace of mind that comes with clocking out of a job at the end of the day and being able to go home and not think too much about your career or your job. I promise you, if you start your own business, there's not going to be too many days and especially nights to where you're not going to be thinking about your business when that head hits the pillow. So think about that and make your decisions accordingly. I obviously took the plunge, and I encourage anybody else that has that drive to get after it. Thank you so much for listening to this first season of Brush Up with Braun. I can't wait. Pay attention for season number 2 will be out this summer. We are going to have guests and experts. It's going to be better than season 1. I can't wait. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next one. Happy painting.